Good morning. The hour of convening having arrived, all members will please take their seats. Mr. Clerk, please ring the bell. All members, please take your seats. All members. All right, good morning. I know y'all all got up at the break of dawn to be over at the chamber event. I won't even ask for a raise of hands. I know everyone was there, correct? Yes, sir, absolutely. Thank y'all. Well, we're back here after a great night, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. Now we're going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber. And Mr. Clerk, if you'll vote Representative Mac Jackson's machine present, since he's up here, the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers, will you please close the doors and keep them closed? Thank you. We will begin our day with our scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. I'm going to introduce a special guy as our chaplain of the day. He's a gentleman from what district is that, Mac? 128th. I almost gave you my district when I was looking at the script, but I won't do that. From the 128th district in Middle Georgia. Mac Jackson is a friend to all returning members in this body, and you new members get to know him. He's a fountain of strength and calmness as we go through the hectic days of this assembly. Now I want to tell you a little bit about Mac that I didn't know, other than you're a really good guy and a handsome man with a beautiful wife, Valerie. So all those things said. Mac is like some of the rest of us. He's educated beyond his intelligence. But he handles that much better than I do. But Mac was educated at Albany State, and he attended also Georgia College in Milledgeville. Pretty cool. Good, fine school. He had a career with the state until he entered his second career with the state in public service. Mac is the pastor at St. James Christian Fellowship Church Incorporated. He was elected to this body in 2008. I think one of the best stories I probably have ever heard, Mac, about folks attending church is when you were getting ready to open your services that day, and who rolled up? But Speaker David Ralston. Quite a day for you and for your congregation. So with no further ado, my friend and our friend, Representative Mac Jackson. Mac, It's yours. Speak to us.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations to being elected as the 75th Speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives. And congratulations, go ahead. And congratulations to the Georgia Bulldogs for a perfect 15-0 season and another national championship. Go Dogs. And as I stand here today, I can't help but think about my friend, the late Speaker of the House, Speaker David Ralston. He was a true friend. And as Speaker Barnes just said, he surprised me on a Sunday morning when he showed up at the church. I seen all these state trooper cars driving up, and then when I walked into the foyer, there was Speaker David Ralston. He was a true friend. And I know that he enjoyed the win on Monday night because he was also a true Bulldog fan. In Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 2, you'll find these words. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Now the question comes to mind, how do we look unto Jesus in this new year? How do we keep our eyes on Jesus? Well, the Lord Jesus Christ, when he walked the earth, he said in Matthew 25, 31 through 40, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divided his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and gave you drink? When did we see you a stranger and took you in, or naked and clothed you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come unto you? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these my brothers, you have done it unto me. There's a song that says, if I can help somebody as I travel along the way, then my living shall not be in vain. Ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year. Will you stand with me in prayer? Heavenly Father, as we come before you, we thank you for another new year. We thank you, Lord God, for our new speaker, Speaker Barnes, Father, for our Speaker Pro Tem, for leadership teams in this great body, Father. And we ask that you bless them, give them wisdom, give them knowledge, that they might lead the state of Georgia, Father. Father, we know that you're concerned about people, for you said in your word, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another. Father, we thank you that we can emulate and we can follow the Lord Jesus Christ. And when it's all said and done, we'll give you the praise, the honor, and the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Let us pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Members, you may adjourn to the, if you'd like to get a photo with the pastor, with Mac, to the South Ante room and have a photo with the chaplain of the day. Mac, thank you. You're certainly an example of a servant leader. Thank you for your service. Now, if I can have your attention just for a moment. Just for a moment. So today, not for all you Georgia fans, but for that Georgia fan who's in heaven, Speaker David Ralston, I'm adorned with my University of Georgia pin and my Bulldog tie. Go Dogs! Give your attention. I think we have a video. We'll start our day with a great video.
Now here is Bennett going to fake it, and all the way into the end zone. He faked it to Dajon Edwards, who rolled to the right. Some of the defenders went with him, and Bennett has clear sailing 21 yards into the end zone. Dajon Edwards in the backfield, play fake. Stet sets up to throw. Pressure coming on. Wide open McConkey reaches up high. Touchdown! Touchdown McConkey! Nobody near him. Snap it back on 3rd and a mile. Duggan from the 2 will throw it all the way across the field. It's picked up by Bullardy. Bullard got it again. 2 tight ends that side. Bennett takes the snap in the shotgun, throws for the corner. Brock Bowers one-on-one. Caught. Touchdown. He ate him alive. Falls down into the end zone. 6 more for Georgia.
The Georgia Bulldogs bludgeoned their way to back-to-back, leaving no doubt.
Back to back! Back to back! Yes, sir! Georgia Bulldogs! Yeah, bro! There, let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
Honor to present the national championship trophy once again to Coach Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs.
Bulldog Nation leaves a legacy for coming all the way out to Cali and representing our home university in our state.
Friends, it's time once again to let the big dog eat, and they flat ate tonight. Georgia national champions. Now here is
Thank you, Betsy, and those that put that great tribute together. What a night. What a night. And to those of you who made the trip, we're glad you returned safely. I want to congratulate Coach Smart and President Moorhead on great leadership at University of Georgia. Boy, what this means to all of us in the state of Georgia just can't be measured in any sense of the word. We showed those Texas boys again how you play football, didn't we? So, and everybody in this country, even if you're from Ohio State or wherever, what a great victory. I'm so proud to be a Georgian. It just further lets us, this United States of America know who leads. Georgia leads. Awesome. Go Georgia Bulldogs. Go Dogs. Chair now recognizes Vice Chairman Donahue, the Vice Chairman of the Committee on Information and Audits. Chairman Donahue.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal of the previous legislative day and found it to be correct.
Vice Chairman Donahue, the Vice Chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct.
And Mr. Speaker, it said, "Go Dogs," and we repeated number 2. Thank you.
Absolutely. I like that jacket a little better. Well, not quite as loud as the one you had on the other day. Is there any objection to dispense with the reading? Excuse me. Is there any objection to dispense with the reading of the journal? Chair hears none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Representative Administration of the 104th moves following be established as the order of business during the first part of the period. Unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We're going to pause just for a second. Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of the business for the day? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 11 by Representative Campbell, 171st, a bill being titled an act to amend an act to provide for the compensation of the chairperson and members of the Board of Education of Mitchell County.
Intergovernmental regulations. Coordinations.
House Bill 12 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd, a bill being titled an act to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Coomer.
Intergovernmental coordination.
That completes first readers.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The chair recognizes the majority leader for the purpose of offering a resolution. This is probably something you want to hear.
Thank you, Mr.
So everyone
Speaker.
would take their seats. Gentlemen will suspend just for a minute. Everyone get their seats. Let's have everyone's attention. Okay, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House adopt House Resolution 4.
Clerk will read the caption.
House Resolution 4 of Representative Administration of the 104th, adopting the rules of the House of Representatives and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm here today to present to you, ladies and gentlemen of the House, the proposed rules for the House of Representatives for this biennium. And a copy is out on each of your desks. What I propose to do today is just to walk through the rules as they're presented to you here, identifying any changes which may be a difference from the rules that we had over the previous biennium, and just any changes that you may see in your experience here as a House member. So the first change is in Rule 1. Under the previous rules, committee rooms were not included as a location requiring decorum. So committee rooms have been added in addition to the House chamber and the other locations that are referenced. Next change is to Rule 7. This would put responsibility for invite resolutions on the Speaker's office. So currently that was under the Rules Committee, and this would allow the Speaker's office to help coordinate invite resolutions. Rule 11 adds an ex officio for the health committees. So we're just at the Eggs and Issues this morning, heard Speaker Burns outline his objectives and his priority for health issues, and that is reflected in Rule 11. Rule 18 improves the process where there are no local delegation rules to provide a circumstance for a chair to call a meeting and pass local legislation. So, as many members are aware, under the previous rules, if you had a local delegation that did not have rules, it required unanimous support from members. And this would allow, in a circumstance where there are no local rules, for a hearing to be held and by majority vote of the local delegation for that local bill to be considered and passed. Rule 40 restructures morning orders and afternoon orders. And what I would just say to you is I can summarize it this way. This may be the most noticeable change that you will see, but it will allow for certainly greater efficiency as we have guests coming to the Capitol and as we consider important measures. So going forward, what we'll do is have an opportunity to recognize visitors who have come here to the Capitol in the morning, as we have. That was often, of course, part of morning orders. But then what we have typically had, morning orders where members speak on issues that are of importance to that member, that will take place after the business of the House is completed. Now, what you're going to see here is actually additional time allowed for that speaking under these rules. So under our previous rules, 10 minutes were allowed after day 20 for all morning orders, 20 minutes before that point. And under this new proposal, there'd be 10 minutes for recognition and 15 minutes for members to make a point of personal privilege. So there would be combined 25 minutes daily, and that would be maintained throughout session. So that would not drop off at a certain point. So it's actually going to allow for greater recognition, a greater opportunity for members to speak to issues of importance, and will allow members to have some predictability if they're inviting groups here to the Capitol who they may want to recognize when they come here. Rule 48 reflects a current practice that has been followed in the House, allowing a bill to be acted on in committee prior to that bill being second read on the floor. So a lot of what you're going to see in these proposed rule changes are us working to update our rules to reflect what's commonly being done already in the House without issue, to make sure that our rules are very clear that that's permissible, and that's what Rule 40 would do. I'm sorry, Rule 48 would do. Rule 49 makes clear that on the final day of the legislative term, when bills cannot be assigned to committees because of the late point in session, that a member cannot introduce legislation that day. However, that rule can be suspended, of course. And the real reason for that is on sine die, we don't want to put a real burden on our clerk's office with a lot of legislation being introduced, which does not have an opportunity to be passed. If it's introduced on day 40, there isn't a chance for it to even be assigned to committee on that date. And so that just clarifies that issue and would be of help administratively. All right, so Rule 82 would provide for a potential fine for a second or subsequent offense for transgressing the rules. So this is only a second or subsequent offense, and that would allow up to now $1,000 to be the fine. And so that is the update there. And we're talking about circumstances which I would submit are very rare, what we would hope would be very rare, but that makes clear what the sanction would be, what the maximum of that sanction would be. Rule 107 makes clear that a bill that's on the rules calendar and is postponed will remain on the calendar until acted upon by the House. Now, members of the House who have been here in previous sessions are familiar that that already occurs. So if a bill is not acted upon and it's postponed, it's subject to being called off the rules calendar for the Speaker to call for a vote at a later point in time. And this just reflects that reality in the rules. Rule 129 provides a clarification that a member may not vote after a machine is locked. So your opportunity to vote is when the machines are unlocked and to put and to vote your machine at that time. The next change, which really goes along with this, are the clarifications provided in Rule 136 that makes clear that a member who wishes to submit a letter on his or her letterhead with the word limit to be provided into the House Journal to accompany his or her vote, that clarity is provided. So if a member chooses to, under Rule 136, to submit such a letter, that may occur, but a vote may not be made after the machines are locked. And I'd submit that that's very helpful to the clerk's office as well, so that they're not asked to vote a member after the machines have been locked. Rule 139 reduces the length of time required for machines to remain open. So you all may remember this issue from last year with how long does the bell need to ring. So this would address that, make clarity as to that, but it would be subject to the discretion of the chair. Rule 160 is a reflection that I'm really excited about this year. So as we all know, we're, thanks to Speaker Burns and previous Speaker Jones working on this issue, we are restoring the PAGE program here at the state capitol for the House of Representatives, and it is going to be part of an educational component where pages who come here to the Capitol will have a chance to participate in an educational programming, and there'll be a series of events for them to do. It won't just be them just coming, showing up here with our outstanding page staff helping them, and then them leaving. There'll be more to take in as they learn about the state capitol. But as part of that, the number of pages will be 5, will be the number for members. And we believe that that's going to allow a real success as we implement this new PAGE educational program. And I want to thank the speaker and the staff that's worked on that for making that possible going forward. I'm really excited about talking about that with my constituents. Rule 162 will set a limit on the introduction of resolutions. So privilege resolutions are currently capped. This just updates a reasonable number of resolutions per session or biennium that a member may introduce as far as privilege resolutions go. Rule 173 provides that when a member is excused for the purposes of ordered military service, that the House rules comply with Georgia law. So there's existing Georgia law that places certain requirements on what pay is or isn't to be given under those circumstances of ordered military service. And this just updates our House rules to ensure compliance with statute. Rule 175 concerns third-party communications that are an important part of the legislative process. So what I'll just briefly do here is talk about Rule 175 and 176. So as many members here are aware, we have a constitutional legislative privilege. Now what that entails is that allows communication that takes place as part of public policy debate and discussion to be protected. And that is a member's choice as to whether to exercise that, but the purpose is to preserve the separation of powers that we have in the state, the legislative branch having free and open debate and discussion about proposals that are appropriate. And for that legislative privilege, which again is constitutional, it does not exist because of our rules or because of some other statute, and there is a long history in recognizing this privilege. At the request of Legislative Counsel, we are seeking to include a provision reflecting that legislative privilege in our House rules. And this is really done for several reasons. First of all, it reminds members about it, helps to educate and allow for a discussion to take place, allows constituents who may have contact with a representative or an elected official to have maybe a greater sense of relief that that legislator can determine whether or not that communication might become public at some other point, which could be a real benefit to the public. And finally, it's just a reflection of what is already in place through constitutional means, that legislative privilege. And again, this is at the request of Legislative Counsel, and it is for the purpose of ensuring that the legislative privilege that is afforded to legislators, like each of you, is reflected in our rules and is well known by the membership here. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. Speaker, if there are any. I would submit that the rules that are before you here today are, first of all, addressing cleanup matters that are important to work on every biennium when we have new updates, but also proposals to ensure greater efficiency, greater ability for us to recognize our constituents when they come here to the Capitol, and more time for us to debate and bring up issues that are of importance to us, rather than having a more limited time to do so in morning orders. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Gentlemen, will yield some questions?
Yes, sir.
I recognize the gentleman from the 61st to your left, Representative Bruce.
Over here.
Way in the back.
Yes, sir. I see you.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I just want to get clarification. You know, in the past, we might be in a committee meeting, we might be somewhere, and you get here after roll call, and we would come down and sign a vote. Are we saying we can't do that anymore?
So your presence, your attendance is unchanged in that respect. What the difference here would be if you're going to vote on a bill. If you're going to vote on a bill, it has to be done before the machines are locked.
Okay, but just on a bill, because sometimes we vote on stuff that's not bills.
Yes, sir. Yeah, legislation. Thank you for letting me clarify. Bill or resolution. It's if you are late to session and your presence is to be acknowledged, you know, either there's an excused in place or some other means is necessary in order to reflect that you're here, that's unchanged.
Gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Further? The gentleman from the 107th Minority Whip, for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Leader of Stration, thank you for the summary of the changes. Would you be so kind as to yield to a few questions?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to.
So, to begin with, is it not true that the change to Rule 18.1 could significantly undermine local control and provide the majority party the unilateral ability to pass local legislation that is opposed by a majority of legislators who represent a county or city?
No, I completely disagree. So, as the members are aware, we have had circumstances in the past where either there are no local rules in which our House rules required unanimous support by the membership of the local delegation in order to allow that bill to pass. And what that effectively has resulted in is the ability of one member to hold up legislation, local legislation, which may be supported by all other, potentially a wide margin comparatively of the local delegation to see that local bill pass. And in the spirit of ensuring that matters that are of importance can be considered when there are not local delegation rules, an update is provided to Rule 18. Now, additionally, as we have seen in the past, there are circumstances when local legislation that is potentially very contentious is ultimately debated potentially as part of a local calendar here on the floor. And what the updates to Rule 18 will allow for is that debate to take place potentially in committee, which is an appropriate location for vetting of legislation, for support or opposition of local members to be heard out, and the committee where the bill was sent has a chance to make its recommendation after hearing from all involved and making a determination as to what the will of the committee is.
So I appreciate the reminder to all the county delegation member chairs to file their rules. But just to clarify, and again for the avoidance of doubt, during this session and in future sessions, the majority party will not, or y'all commit to not passing local legislation that may be opposed by a majority of the local members who represent that political subdivision, whether it's a county or a city.
Yeah, so as I said, the updates to Rule 18 allow for vetting of legislation within committee, which I'd submit is a really good thing. That's certainly how our legislative process is set up, to allow for witnesses, to allow for debate by members, to allow members to appear potentially and to speak for or against legislation in committee, which is particularly appropriate with local legislation, where there are local interests or issues or greater knowledge as to the issue at hand in the local bill from the members of that delegation. So Rule 18 will allow for greater efficiency in that regard, and I believe is a very good improvement to our rules.
And to clarify, it would be the majority of that committee, not the majority of a local delegation, that would be able to pass that bill out of committee. Is that not true?
So I don't believe that that is specified in the rules that are here. It would allow for that issue to be debated and discussed in committee if necessary.
I just know that all members here ought to want to protect local control to ensure the people of Georgia are able to hold accountable their elected representatives. Leader of Session, do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that the amendments to Rule 1.9, 8.1, 8.2, and 9, is it not true that that may restrict or chill the free speech rights of Georgians who may come across this great state of Georgia to come and testify in committee meetings, to have their voices heard on legislative matters that may affect their lives?
Well, I didn't catch all the rules that you cited, but I would just say generally no. The rules that are before us here today, including the changes, will actually promote free and open discussion of issues that are to be determined. You know, we're each sent here to reflect our views on public policy matters that come before us, and part of that also is having rules that are understood by all involved, so that the rules are very clear and upfront, that we follow, adhere to those rules, and that there be an opportunity for free and open discussion to take place by legislators, certainly as they're communicating with each other or as bills are being debated in committee.
So just as a refresher, Rule 1.9 prohibits visual displays by the committee chairperson. Rule 8.1 prohibits noises. Rule 8.2 prohibits any use of recording devices, and of course Rule 9 empowers the committee chair to clear the room based on what I would assume is a subjective understanding of disorderly conduct.
So what we have is a need, and I appreciate the Minority Whip's questions because we're both attorneys and we know the importance of certainly in the courtroom having an opportunity to make our arguments and to have decorum in place so that we're able to do so. And I'm very proud of this House. We had cameras in our committee rooms allowing public access to our committee rooms. That is maintained, that is unchanged here. They allow for debate, free and open debate to take place in our committees is the cornerstone of our rules, and I think that is a great thing that we should be very proud of. So I would just submit that any cornerstone of free and open debate also requires that there be decorum within a committee. And a committee chair, empowered under the rules, just as the committee chairs have been in the past, help to protect that.
Does the chairman yield for one last question?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that the amendment to Rule 48.3 and the creation of rules, or the codification of Rules 175 and 176, is it not true that that will reduce transparency in the legislative process and potentially increase the risk of corruption to the benefit of special interests, particularly in light of the creation of leadership committees that allow for monies to be received by both parties while we are in session to the detriment of the people we serve?
No, what is done with these rules is a preservation of the transparency that we have, and to make clear with respect to certain practices that are in place or protections that we have, say constitutionally, that's reflected in our rules. And that's a very good thing. And I appreciate the gentleman's prepared questions today. He clearly has thought a lot about this, including bringing up rules that have been in place for many years. And so I think that discussion is fine. But I'm also happy to really focus on what are our updates to the rules that we've already had in place so that members are aware of that.
Thank you, Leader of Session.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whip, for those questions. Mr. Leader, thank you for those questions. We have a couple more if you yield.
Yes, sir. I'll yield for one more.
Maybe a couple, okay?
Okay.
These rules are important.
Yes, sir.
I'd recognize the gentleman from the 11th, Chairman Jaspers, for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Do you yield, please?
Yes, sir.
Majority Leader Administration, thank you for your work and diligent work on these rules and rules update. And isn't it true that these are just an update to ensure the effective movement and work of legislation in the House?
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. That's what these rules are, and I think the House members can vote proudly for these rules here today.
Chair now recognizes a gentleman from the 3rd House District, Representative Horner. Hold on 1 second. Have a little technical issue there, Representative Horner. Okay, try again now.
There we go. Perfect. Thank
Gotcha.
you. Is it not true that on Rule 139, it used to be 60 seconds, and now it's 30 seconds to vote? And it is saying, or until the speaker has determined sufficient time. Will the chair guarantee that the speaker gives us 30 seconds to at least vote? Because the 60 seconds to 30-second window, I mean, we could be out there, we could be on the hallway. I just want to guarantee our right to vote.
Yeah, I know Speaker Burns, and I know his character and the leader that he is, and I can assure the gentleman that there's going to be no issue with that whatsoever. I know that the representative's a newly elected member, and I'm excited to serve with you. Under our previous rules, 60 seconds is a long time if you count it out. You know, that's a long period of time. And so just greater clarity to provide for a shorter period of time, but in the discretion of the chair to make it shorter. If it feels ridiculous to go that long, then that's updated in the rules.
Mr. Leader, isn't it true that we're going to ensure that we start on time and we're going to finish on time, but we're going to be proactive as we move through? But I guarantee all the members you will have an adequate opportunity to be in here and cast your vote to represent your people. That
Yes,
will
sir.
be, no doubt that will occur. I recognize the lady from the 57th, Representative Evans, for a question to your left, Mr. Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Majority Leader yield?
Yes, ma'am.
With regard to the changes in Rule 175 about legislative privilege, I just wanted to get some clarification, because since we're just saying that if any legislator consults with a non-legislator, then that's going to be able to be covered by the privilege at the legislator's discretion. Is that right?
Yes.
Will you yield for one further one?
Yes, ma'am.
If it's just that it can be any non-legislator, does that mean that if I, as a legislator, or anyone else in here, consults with members of the executive branch, that while it wouldn't otherwise be covered by privilege, is now all of a sudden going to be covered by privilege and shield the public from being able to see those executive level communications with legislators?
No, I expect that the way this would play out is a member who may have questions, because we can't all be experts on every issue that comes up before us. We rely on others who do have expertise, that communication, in order to help us make those determinations, would be protected. But as far as rules already applying to the administration or the executive branch, that would remain unchanged.
I know I said only one more, but any good lawyer always has another question. Will you yield for one more?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you able to ensure that? Because this rule says non-legislator. It doesn't say non-legislators that are not in the executive. It doesn't have any other caveats on it. So how are we to ensure that the public is still going to have access to those executive level communications?
Well, of course, I think the circumstance that you're talking about would be the executive branch attempting to claim legislative privilege, which is outside of its branch. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but it seems to me inconsistent to claim that the executive branch, the administration, will be able to claim legislative privilege. It's a separate branch. So ultimately, this is about ensuring that the General Assembly, members of the General Assembly, can receive fair and impartial communication to help make determination as to public policy matters. And what is already in existence, constitutional legislative privilege, remains unchanged. It would just be reflected in the rules.
I'm just concerned that a legislator will now be able to make communications with an executive privilege. I understand the executive can't do that, but that's my concern. Thank you for the question, taking the
ma'am.
questions.
Mr. Leader, let's recognize the lady from the 56th.
Yes, sir.
Representative Maynor, to your right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I have just a very short questions. For 1.9, I just would like to say that I do feel like, you know, we just had redistricting, and in redistricting we did have props, and so I feel like 1.9 is saying in circumstances like that, if a legislator wanted to have some props to further say what their bill is providing, that this bill is saying that the chairman would have discretion to say if the legislator can provide that prop or not. Can you clarify that for me?
Yes, ma'am. So as we're all aware, the Speaker chairs debate and the presentation of legislation here in the chamber. Rule 1.9 would require the chair's approval for having these items in the House chamber.
Further clarification?
Yes, ma'am.
So I do know that, you know, say for example, if we wanted to present something in the chamber, we might have to get it approved through House Media Services, and that's approved through the Speaker's office. But this says House Committee rooms.
I see. There's two sentences to Rule 1.9. So you're talking about the second sentence.
Yes.
Yes, so the chair of the committee would have similar consideration within the committee room. And so certainly for your example, so for a redistricting proposal, and I sat through many of these meetings, of course the chair authorized a visual display of the legislation under consideration. So those were presented.
Thank you for the
Yes,
clarification.
ma'am. Thank you.
The next question, do you further yield?
Yes.
For Rule 129, I'm just thinking about on the first day when we had roll call, sometimes the machines will have a malfunction. And so if there is a malfunction and someone can't vote, is the follow-up to that just doing 136 so they can have a record of it? Or what happens if there's a malfunction?
If there's a malfunction, the member is certainly going to be able to vote. The only issue of the clarification was if a machine vote is taken, there's no malfunction of the machine, and the machines are locked, a member cannot then approach the clerk and say, vote me yes or vote me no on that bill. Once the machines are locked and there's no malfunction of the machine and it's a machine vote, that is it. When the machines are locked, that is, there's no other opportunity to vote on that measure, which I'd submit is consistent with our rules otherwise. Just makes it clear.
Gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I would just say if we're going to go forward with this vote, it might be helpful to just put that in there for everybody's sake. I don't know the procedure for adding the malfunction part, but it might be helpful just going down the road, because even though our body is distinguished, a body 10 years from now might not be as distinguished.
Well, I want to thank the gentlelady for the point, and I would just say my office is always open. If anyone upon reviewing these has ideas for ways to further clarify the rules, please come and talk to me. What I'd submit to you is what's before you now reflects the orderly debate that we've had in this chamber in the past, ensures that we have clarification and updates for what we've already been doing, and prospectively looks to make our process even better going forward, as I've outlined. And for that reason, I would ask for your favorable consideration of House Resolution 4, the rules of the House for this biennium. Mr. Speaker, if there are no further questions, I will yield the well.
There were a couple more, Mr. Leader, but we'll cut it off right there. I think we've thoroughly discussed this situation. I think our thoughts are that many of the things that's been outlined by the leader are policies that we've passed and we've utilized in the past. This just clarifies them in the document with our rules, so there's no doubt about where we are. And to the lady's point, I think we've always worked very closely with the clerk when there's been a technical problem, that we would make sure that that member's vote was cast at the proper time. This is when someone comes back and attempts to cast a vote after the machine is locked and we move forward. Excuse me. Gotcha. Okay, is there any objection on the adoption of the resolution, adopting the House resolutions for the 2023-2024 term? There is objection. Does the gentleman move? The gentleman moves. At this time, I'll be glad to recognize, no, just 1 minute, we'll recognize you for a parliamentary inquiry. On the adoption of the rules of the House, all those in favor of adopting the rules of the House will vote yes or green. All those opposed will vote no or red, and the clerk will unlock the machine. For what purpose does the gentleman from the 3rd District rise?
I want to make a motion.
The floor is open for a parliamentary inquiry. A motion would be out of order this time. Do you have a parliamentary inquiry?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Why do members not have the time to read the rules before they are placed on our desk? I mean, we were at breakfast until about 10:30, and I wanted to make a motion to table.
The rules were on they were actually on your desk last night for your review. And so I think we've had a very robust discussion this morning and a very thorough explanation from the majority leader. So with that, I believe we are in a posture that we can move forward on the adoption of the rules. The chair would recognize the lady from the 106th, Representative Hutchinson.
Parliamentary
For what purpose would you like to be recognized?
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that with Rule 40.1, I would no longer be able to recognize children available for adoption unless they are in the gallery?
No, that's not correct. You will still have that opportunity in the afternoon orders.
Afternoon orders?
Yes, ma'am. That will be.
But not morning orders?
That is correct.
Okay.
Afternoon orders.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just tell them afternoon orders to be immediately after the rules calendar is completed.
So the process will be as soon as we complete the rules calendar, then we'll move into afternoon orders. So that will give you ample opportunity to make any points and bring attention to any issues that we as members need to have attention brought to. Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 21st, Representative Thomas. For what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that we've had a minor but very substantial change to Rule 79? It's on page 32 of the new rules. In the previous rules, it was on page 31, specifically saying respectfully address him or herself to Mr. Speaker and Madam Speaker has now been added. And I think that has to do with the great leadership of Pro Tem Jones. And we're glad to have a female and see female leadership in this House. And I just wanted to recognize that that wasn't in our rules before, and it is now. Thank you.
Our rules are very thorough, as they should be. For what purpose does the gentleman from the 73rd rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that the return of the PAGE program in its current form is the result of not only the hard work of the Speaker's office, but in particular Mrs. Burns, and that the focus on
The gentleman knows what he so states. There's no doubt about that. Chair would recognize the lady from the 89th, Representative Evans, where is?
Yeah. Parliamentary inquiry?
State your inquiry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Isn't it true regarding Rule 8.2 that many of my colleagues are very concerned about transparency and public access for the citizens of Georgia, especially in committee hearings? And isn't it true that I will hope that the chairman of committees will give permission to citizens to take photos of themselves or of the hearings and especially while they're providing testimony. This is something that's very important to our citizens, and I'm very concerned about, and I just want you to know that, isn't it true that many of our colleagues are very concerned, especially about this limitation in committee hearings?
Is that 8.2?
It's 8.2, yes, sir.
Is that the recording video that you're referring to?
Yes. For example, Mr. Speaker, I have citizens that have come to testify in committee, and their giving testimony is a big deal to them, and they would like to have a family member take a video of them giving testimony. And I'm very concerned that how this will be handled. I mean, will you ask your chairman to allow this to happen, or will you ask your chairman not to give permission? Excuse me. Yeah.
To the lady's question, all of our committee meetings are online, on videoed, and they are archived. So the member's family or any other interested citizen would have access to that testimony at the committee meeting.
I understand.
Do you have a further inquiry?
Yes, sir, I do have a further inquiry, but it isn't it true that it would be that the citizens, that's an extra step for them to take to get that testimony, to get the video, and it would be very nice for them to be able to just use their own camera right then and there and to take that. So my question is, would you give committee chairman the permission to give permission, or are you going to say no cameras in committee rooms?
I believe because of the of our openness and the recording of our committee meetings, I think we've covered that, and I think it'll be maybe a little bit more strenuous for the citizen, but there'll be a good quality, it'll be available, and they will have access. And I think that's what we need to make sure that we have that transparency. And I think we've covered that. But thank you for your question. Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 168 from the coast, Representative Williams, for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Certainly, we appreciate the First Lady's efforts with the PAGE program, but what about those of us that have made 10 promises already for PAGES, not knowing that it was going to be reduced to 5?
I'd say he has a problem.
I was on the campaign trail, man. I needed 25.
Representative Williams, let me tell you, the PAGE program is very, very important here. We're trying to make sure that the PAGE program, as it has been structured in the past, was important to the young people of this state. But we're making sure that this experience as a PAGE is very meaningful and that it's educational. And I believe it is a new day, if you will. We've not had the PAGE program, as you know, for several years now because of the restrictions. But I believe this will work, and we're going to try it. I think if we need to make tweaks to it, we will do that as well. But I think it's something we need to work closely with and try to make it work and accommodate as many people as we can. So thank you for your question. At this time, we're going to move forward. Have all the members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the adoption of the House resolution, the ayes are 94 and the nays 77, and the rules of this House have been adopted. Thank you. The clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Recognizing and commending Dr. Alex Carmadale. Recognizing January 26, 2023 as National Guard Day at the State Capitol and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. Would recognize Representative Washburn from the 144th to come down and introduce the Doctor of the Day. To the well. Representative Washburn. Here he is. If you'll come to the well, Representative Washburn. If you'll give the gentleman your attention.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, it's a privilege for me today to introduce our Doctor of the Day, Dr. Raina Muna, who practices in Macon, Georgia. Dr. Muna has been a friend for a long time and provides excellent care for our folks there, for her patients. And she has served us as Doctor of the Day a number of times. I had hoped to speak with her just a minute so I'd have an exact number, but I wasn't able to do that. But she has been very faithful in being our Doctor of the Day here at the Capitol, and I am honored today to introduce Dr. Raina Muna. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. It's important for us to have a Doctor of the Day here, and we appreciate you securing the good doctor. We do have some announcements. At this time, I would recognize the Chairman of Appropriations, Chairman Hatchett, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, you should have received a schedule on your desk for joint House and Senate budget hearings for next week. They'll begin at 10 on Tuesday morning and end hopefully around noon on Thursday afternoon. We will break every night to go home. So if you want to look, the first day, for those of you that have been here more than just a few days, you'll notice that the discussions are a little different. We're going to have a little bit more time, hopefully, for input from the committee members, and it's going to take a little different approach to the presentations from our agencies. So Tuesday's going to be a little different, so if you're going to be here and you are on the Appropriations Committee, please come and attend. And since we're not going to be, we are in session tomorrow, but things are going to be different and in a different location, I am proud to announce that the governor is releasing his budget Friday morning. Your books will be available in 412 in the budget office in CLOB at 9 o'clock Friday morning. So you can have plenty of time to read them over the weekend and over the week. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your work. The chair now recognizes Chairman Dickey for an announcement. Chairman Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And colleagues, I want to call attention to an invitation that's on each of your desks. There's a reception this afternoon at 4:30 from 15 associations and friends of ours who are great employers in this state and do great work, and it would they would very much appreciate it, them and their members, if you would stop by and speak to them at the Commerce Club at 4:30 today. So take a look at that invitation. Hope you can go. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a good group. Chair now recognizes Representative Lauren McDonald for an announcement. Representative McDonald.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I want to first thank the 15 plus people that were texting me on Monday saying that the Speaker was calling me to come to the well as I was getting on an airplane to go to LA. But anyway, this is from the governor's office. Today is the last day that we can get our tickets for the inauguration. Big day tomorrow. So please, if you can, by the end of the day, 5 o'clock, they've asked everyone to go to support at georgiastrongcommittee.com. You get 10 tickets for the inauguration. If you have any problem, please call the governor's floor leader's office, and Talmadge James will help you with getting and securing your ticket. So today is the last day to get inauguration tickets. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, let's make sure that we, did you guys and ladies that attended, did y'all make sure y'all delivered that resolution to the governor? It was delivered correctly?
Yes, sir. We sure did.
Okay, absolutely. Good work. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Certainly, I'm glad y'all went since y'all were able to win and deliver. So thank you.
2:30 was very early. That's my arrival this morning. Got back at 2:30.
Awesome. Good to have you today. I'm glad you had safe travels. Let's talk about Thursday just for a moment. Y'all received the details yesterday in an email. But let's go over it. For the swearing in on Thursday morning, buses will be available on Mitchell Street in between the CLOB and the Capitol beginning at 8 a.m. until 9:10 a.m. These buses are for us, legislators, staff, and guests. All members will enter through the main gates. Once inside, you will be directed to your section. After the ceremony, please exit the front of the Convocation Center to find the buses going back to the Capitol. Buses will start running again after the review of troops. Buses will not depart before the review is concluded. These are the details. If you have any special circumstances, you need to reach out to my office to make sure that you're taken care of, or certainly with the floor leaders and their good work. And we will be in joint session, as you know, tomorrow as we swear in the governor and the constitutional officers at the Convocation Center right down the street. It's going to be a great day for Georgia, and we look forward to it. It's a great day for this House. At this time, I'll recognize the majority leader for, I almost forgot the most important thing of the day. Birthdays. Does anybody want to raise their hand? There's two of them for the day. Representative Draper has a birthday. Please stand, Representative. Happy birthday to you. And Representative Houston Gaines has a birthday today. Stand up, my friend. I think that concludes our work of the day. Chair now recognizes the majority leader for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House stand adjourned until we return in joint session at 9:30 a.m. on Thursday, January 12, 2023 at the Georgia State University Convocation Center.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. On the motion of the majority leader that this House stand adjourned until 9:30 a.m. on Thursday, January the 12th, 2023. Thank you. Hold it. I guess we better do that, hadn't we? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say no. It was very